For those who don't know who Ray Hill is, he's a local living legend. The man has been on the airwaves and on the vibrations for years.
And literally for the hour before us.
And with the hour before us, the man was a defendant who took his case all the way to the Supreme Court and allowed all of us to say F the police, and then subsequently NWA was able to do that. The man is involved in local politics. He's involved in local speech. He's an actor, writer, advocate.
Don't forget the ex-convict part.
Ex-con, talk to us about
retired burglar.
Did you at least beat one of those, or did you time for that?
No, I got sentenced to 160 years in the Texas penitentiary.
You look good.
For commercial burglary. Yeah, I'm a lot older than I look.
You look good for 160 years.
No, I got down there, and when you go to prison with a number like that, but you ain't worried about getting out because your discharge plan is what, a pine box or a body bag or a fistful of ashes? You know?
Right.
That's all you got. And so I went down there and I immersed myself into that culture and was absolutely fascinated by prison culture. Prison culture is a derivative of slave culture. Read Michelle Alexander's book, The New Jim Crow, you'll understand. And hobo culture. That's where prison culture comes from. It derives from that thing. So the language matches how hobos communicate and how slaves communicated in antebellum period.
What years were you there? How long did you stay, and how'd you get out?
I went to Texas prison in November of 1970, and I was assigned to the Ramsey unit down in Brazoria County.
Right, I've been there.
My job assignment was I was the maintenance bookkeeper. And I had 160 years, 20 consecutive 8-year sentences. And so as soon as I got there, they made me a outside trustee.
Right.
Well, why the hell would they do that? Because I knew head of classification was a fellow named Red McCaskill. He was a former Houston constable, Big Red, his father. He was the son of Red McCaskill, the constable, and they made me, he was in charge of classification. You're Ramon Hill's son, ain't you? And I said, I am. And so he said, well, I'm gonna put you out there as trustee, and if you run off, I'm gonna come down here and kick you all up in your ass. You understand me that? And he used much rougher language than that. I said, yes, sir, I understand that. I appreciate your trust in me, but I was able to run all over the unit by myself most of the time.
And how long were you there for?
4 years, 4 months, and 17 days.
But you were sentenced to 160 years. How'd you get out?
I filed an 8th Amendment writ in the Southern District of Texas saying 160 years was cruel and unusual for nonviolent crimes against property. Now the writ, according to case law, didn't have a chance of a fart in outer space. It was just,
You do it pro se?
It just would move them. But I did it pro se. I had John Hughes was my criminal defense lawyer. He's the guy that got me that 160 years, and I kept him on to work the writ. And so he was there next to me, and he said, I can't use some words on broadcast, but we're wetting up the rope. We ain't getting nowhere with this. And I said, all right, John, just use your bar card and shut up. And I was paying him well enough to do that, because if you are a commercial burglar and you steal what queers actually know about, antiques, art, jewels, and electronics, you can make a lot of money if you don't fence that off at 10 cents on the dollar. And what I did is open up an antique store in Madison, Tennessee. My sheriff, from whom I rented the building space, was a fellow by the name of Buford Pussy. You may have heard of him. They made movies about him called Walking Tall. That was my sheriff in Madison County, Tennessee. And he knew everything, and my store was stolen, but it wasn't stolen in Madison County.
Sure.
So I paid high rent, but no questions were asked.
Right.
He thought it was strange that my new inventory trucks appeared in the middle of the night.
That's awesome.
And I did that professionally for a good many years, made a lot of money. And so when I got busted in an income tax investigation.
But so I'd imagine by the
That's how they always get
by
you
the
with
feds,
income
tax. Yeah, they got
income
me.
tax by the. I mean, would you still?
No, no,
it's state-
no. The feds were investigating me for income tax, but Will Wilson, who was the city attorney, the federal attorney in Houston, found out there wasn't any future in that. He didn't have a case because I had paid income tax. If the money was not in a brown paper sack in my closet, I paid taxes on it. Everything went through the bank, I paid taxes on. And it's not his business where it came from. His
Right.
business was that I paid taxes. And so Will Wilson backed off, and it was left to Carol Vance, the district attorney, to prosecute me for the burglaries. And I did 10 felony thefts and 10 burglaries.
What are you robbing museums or something?
No, warehouses.
Warehouses.
Antique stores, warehouses, the Sakowitz department store, jewel department.
That is awesome.
I did all these. I did time for all this, so I can talk
Right,
about it.
right, sure, sure.
Statute of limitations.
They can't try me
it's
again.
over. It's over already.
Double
yeah.
jeopardy is attached.
This is
Statute of
phenomenal.
limitations.
They can't try me. So I wound up going at Judge Walton. John Hughes was my criminal defense lawyer, who's now dead. Judge Walton was my judge, who's now dead. And so we went in. I won 2 trials with John Hughes, and I lost the 3rd trial. And I don't know how I lost it, because we had tape of me being on television in Cleveland, Ohio, because I was also involved in the anti-war movement and
Okay.
and that kind of stuff. And I was in Cleveland, Ohio, when the burglary took place, and there was the wall had the calendar and a clock behind me, and that was evidence. And I said, Mr. Hill couldn't have done this burglary. But at my level, I didn't do all the burglaries. I had a crew to do that. I just didn't identify them.
I mean, you're like the real life Thomas Crown.
That's what I'm thinking.